Hi, this is Pat Kirkman from Cohesive Networks. It's 3:30. We're about ready to kick off here on our workload mobility webinar with a focus on the healthcare market. We'll wait a couple minutes here. I see some people coming onto the line. We've got everybody muted. We'll take questions via chat. And let's just give it another half minute or so, and then we'll kick off. So thank you everybody who's here. I'm sure some people will just end up looking online, but it's always nice to have some people actually online. We're in that lull period where we're past Thanksgiving, but not quite to Christmas. Maybe a little snow on the ground in some places. We have a bit here, and okay, it's 3:31. Let's kick off. So as I said, I'm Patrick Kirkman. I'm with Cohesive Networks. Cohesive Networks is in the cloud networking and security space. I think that's the best way to say it. Our vision is to be a critical connectivity and security component for businesses large and small. We're quite proud of the fact that we've had customers for 10 years that are very small customers, maybe just use a single one of our application security controllers. Purchase it through the Amazon network or the Azure Marketplace, Amazon Marketplace. And then we have large customers, multi-billion-dollar businesses who are very large customers of ours, and everywhere in between. Part of the journey to the cloud is, as you scale your business, you need to be able to connect, federate, and secure your networks. And you need to have a testable control. You have to have insight, visibility, control over those networks. When we talk about connecting, federating, and securing, we'll talk a little bit more how that fits into the industry view. But for us, it's really a journey, where as you just start your business, you may have some basic, your business in the cloud, anchored by the cloud. You need to solve some really basic and fundamental connectivity issues, and obviously some basic security issues. As you scale that business up, the ability to integrate your partners, your customers, data providers, data consumers, it becomes a federation job. And then ultimately you have to have security for your business to be viable long run. And we talk about security with a small s, which is basic encryption, basic firewalling, versus you get up the scale and you start having intrusion detection, extrusion prevention. So we want to talk about workload mobility and how Cohesive helps you manage that in a HIPAA compliant way, or to say it in another way, in a world where you have to be HIPAA compliant. We can help, but it's ultimately your job. Healthcare providers just have a lot of different technologies. All these things now are touching the cloud, moving to the cloud, need to connect to the cloud, and you're in a highly regulated environment. It's a big, growing, booming business, but it's not a luxury business. It's a business that has to really pay attention to cost, both from just a general business compliance point of view and as part of meeting your customer mission. So you have all these solution providers, and each of them has some form of security protocols, but it's your responsibility that the overall solution is secure, and that is your responsibility. The cloud is not just Amazon. Obviously, we're using an example here from Amazon, but obviously some of you are in Azure, some are in Google, some are in IBM, Oracle, and then there's even regional clouds of significance where you might be wanting to deploy a point of presence to provide services or data to your customers and partners. So Amazon, this is pretty clear that they put in place this infrastructure. They put in place this software layer. But there's the whole raft of things that ultimately are your responsibility. They call this the shared responsibility model. So having network traffic protection, encryption, integrity, identity, firewall, etc., all of those things become your responsibility, meaning you have to know at least what's going on. You may use some different service providers, but you have to have a testable control because it's your executives of your organization are the ones that are going to fill out the forms saying, yes, we attest that we are secure. So here's a slide from HipaaTraining.com. that's who we use. We have to be audited and approved to work as a business associate. And so this is the training, one of the training resources we use, and we think they do a great job. And so reproducing one of their slides here, which is talking about the state of the state, right? So the healthcare industry lags in the implementation of information security. So I think 95% with internet connectivity, 25% with no firewall. Only 24% conduct security awareness programs, and a lot of computerized patient information. And technical security, if you think of it as sort of a pyramid or kind of a Maslow's, the equivalent of a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but it's a hierarchy of needs within healthcare information. Technical security for private healthcare information is kind of the top of the thing. You can have guards, you can have file cabinets, you can have all those things in the sort of administrative and physical world. But then how do you have the technical safeguards? And that's just something where when we read HIPAA or other related things, whether it's some forms of personal identity privacy, PII, PCI in the financial world, we think it's a pretty ambitious read of those standards to think that you can have your customer, partner, medical, health, no matter, even if it's somewhat anonymized, images, scans, tests, all of that data, pharmaceutical research, having that move in plain text through what's effectively a multi-tenant environment, whether it's Amazon, Oracle, Azure, Google, etc. That's a pretty ambitious read. So one thing I'll say about Cohesive, we tend to believe in end-to-end security, even in the cloud, and part of our offering gives you the ability to basically use our service networks as effectively encrypted networks. So here's part of the overall situation is Gartner Group has kind of named the space that Cohesive's been in for almost a decade. We were one of the first virtual appliances, virtual providers in the cloud marketplaces. And as our business has grown, what we provide customers with is effectively what Gartner's calling a secure access service edge. And I think we not in too self-serving a way, I hope, but I think, Gartner has basically made the call. It says there's a whole host of network functions and there's a whole host of security functions, and they are coming together and being integrated in what they call a service edge. Now, some people are going to run these service edges in a sense on the ground. There's people like Zscaler, Netscope, where they're putting in place a lot of fixed infrastructure. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on servers that we think of as on the ground, in metal. You connect to their infrastructure, and then they'll connect you to the cloud. So we think of them as cloud to the ground to the cloud. Cohesive is cloud to the ground. We live in the cloud. We build your service edge, sometimes in our infrastructure, but most often it's in your Amazon, your Azure, your Google, VNets and VPCs, in your cloud infrastructure. We work with you to build a private, attestably secure, in your control, with your encryption, secure access service edge. So the nice thing is that, again, Gartner's given it a name, and it gives you the ability to now go out and compare vendors, look at offerings, and no one's brought all this together yet. And if you're a Gartner subscriber, we would encourage you to take a look at this research report. Sorry, I'm breaking the veil here. I'm going out of the thing to another app, but bear with me. This is the thing. So it was published in August. The future of network security is in the cloud. Joe Scarupa, Neil McDonald, Lawrence Arantz. But it really is, we think, a great piece of work, and it's named something that's been going on, and it makes sense of the vendor space in a way that we think others have not really seen as cogently or as clearly. So if you do get Gartner services, give that a look. So, in any event, that's the situation. That's where we fit in this space. So, let's talk about what it takes to have cohesive security. When we talk about our secure access service edge, we talk about it as prior to hearing the name SASE, and I don't know how much I like the name SASE, but we will go with it. We've talked about it as cloud area networking. We can provide for you east-west, let's say, at the cloud edge and from the cloud down to the ground. We can give you an east-west edge that integrates your Azure networks, your Amazon networks, your on-prem Azure stack, your on-prem VMware stack, your Amazon outposts, pretty much whatever you need. We can use the combination of your carrier infrastructure, cloud express routes and direct connects, and just the east-west performance and the cloud region peering performance gives you a very powerful network right at the edge of the cloud infrastructure where your application and your business increasingly runs. As you drill into that, we're talking about, an Amazon region somewhere, an Azure region somewhere, an Amazon outpost somewhere, a VMware on-prem somewhere. And those are in a place, and those that sit in regions and availability zones. But again, what we do, and we'll show a little bit more of the technical detail without getting into too much technology, we use our capabilities, our technology to build for you an east-west edge at the front of the cloud that can then securely and with high availability reach down into your on-premise traditional infrastructures or the places, the point of delivery of services. We have one customer that's bringing data back, all the MRI machines that they provide into hospitals use one of our service networks to bring the data back up into the cloud and provide effectively operational information on those critical medical devices running in medical centers, hospitals, and then sometimes you need to be able to get information to and from your data providers as well as many others. So what we've seen across our customer base is by putting in place this service edge, there's things that you would have otherwise had. Effectively, you try and create your own edge. You're putting your own servers, your own load balancers, your own web servers at the edge of the cloud, and those are not necessarily tuned to defend themselves. So effectively, you can eliminate the bulk of probe traffic that hits your infrastructure by putting an ingress-egress edge in front of it. Provisioning new environments, at least a 50% reduction. We fit into the world you may have heard of and be practicing what they're calling DevOps, development operations, SecOps, security operations, all with an emphasis on automation and management. It may not sound like a big number, but we've gotten feedback that it's been at least 20% reduction in efforts to support high trust audits by having just the ability to say, I have a testable control. I can tell you everything about the data running through my networks. And then if you compare Cohesive and our approach to cloud to the ground, where we're working with you to build your service edge out of cloud infrastructure, all integrated into cloud management and operations, dev operations, automation, and then you compare that to attempting to do this with some of the things that people like a Cisco are coming out with, the costs are dramatically different. And that's because we're not a metal vendor. We don't make metal in a sense, we make virtual. And we don't have the kind of overhang organization that a incumbent, but a very aged incumbent like Cisco has as they attempt to engage in these sort of modern updated use cases at cloud edge. So let's talk a little bit about the technical architecture. You can see from the top of the slides, I have about 27 slides. We're about halfway through, so in terms of slideware, and then we'll take some questions. So obviously part of our technical architecture is not the Cloud Security Alliance top 11 security risks, but it sets the context for our technical architecture. These top 11 security risks, with the exception of like account hijacking, insider threat, it really is a lot of things that have to do with how do you get ingress and egress to your applications. If you're in the cloud, How do you provide micro segmentation? How do you control the flow of traffic between the individual aspects of your application or your business service in cloud? So when you look at those threats, our response to that is every application needs a secure edge. The problem is your applications are everywhere now, right? So when you move to the cloud, um, you're not moving servers. You're moving a business function. You're moving a software function. You're moving a customer function. And so the 550, 500 servers that perform that function, you need to be able to effectively wrap that flexibly. But the cloud gives you all this fluidity, right? You know the phrases of regions, availability zones, subnets, multi-cloud. So you want to be able to put a service edge in place that everywhere your application goes, your service edge easily goes with it. And so in that way, you keep a testable control throughout that cloud lifecycle, as it were. I think that's another important thing. Cohesive was one of the first virtual network providers in the cloud. Our first customers came online in 2008. So we're not somebody who's new to the game. We've seen a lot, done a lot, helped a lot of customers on their journey to the cloud. You know, part of your technical architecture is migration from on-prem to dedicated cloud native. So are you doing what they call lift and shift redeploy? So to the left, we have sort of what we call a canonical internet shopping cart architecture. You know, it's just, I've got N web servers at the front end, I've got N app servers in the middle, I've got N database cluster nodes on the back end, and maybe on the side I have like a message queue, information bus, data warehouse, something like that. So whether this is on-prem or in cloud, you use one of the cohesive secure service edges, virtual networks, you can think of them as. They're represented by the blue boxes everywhere as one of our secure service edge nodes. So you deploy a handful of secure service edge nodes. We call them VNS3 controllers, is the sort of product name, but generically they're service edge nodes. And it's a remarkably small number of rules in the firewall and in the configuration of this environment to make sure that the only thing that can talk to these web servers is stuff that's been traffic that's been whitelisted or tagged or policy in a policy manner to come in from into effectively what you can think of as an application network. And then only the web servers can initiate traffic to the app servers, and the app servers can't initiate to anyone but the web servers. And the web servers can cluster, and they can't initiate to anyone. It's an incredibly small amount of work to make this application more locked down than it ever could have been prior to network virtualization. And so that's a critical part of workload mobility is, can you take a known pattern, the internet shopping cart architecture, lots of systems are built this way. Can you take that known pattern, move it easily to the cloud, and in doing so, without having to boil the ocean, without having to take a lot of risk, whatever kind of metaphor of fear that you want to apply, can you quite simply make it more secure than it's ever been? And the answer is yes. So that's a critical part of workload mobility. And then there's solutions where people are building out of cloud infrastructure. In this case, we're referencing some Amazon stuff where it's, Cloud Trails, Lambda functions, talking to Amazon outposts, using Global Accelerator, Bastion hosts, just a whole series of things, S3, object storage buckets, a whole series of things that is all Amazon native infrastructure. You still need to be able to federate to this. You still need an ingress plane, an egress plane. You want to have direct attestable control of this and be able to monitor it independently of the assurances of the specific cloud provider. So workload mobility, there's the actual mobility, taking a well-known solution and moving it to the cloud, or lift and shift as they call it. And there's other people who are really rethinking their deployment and saying, well, we're going to take this database that used to be in Oracle and we're going to run it not even in Amazon RDS. We're going to try and move things to DynamoDB because it was a simple database. We're going to use object storage instead of the mounting Windows CIFS file systems. So some rethinking happens, but the question is still, how do you manage that cloud to the ground edge? How do you federate? How do you have independent and testable control? Both critical elements of workload mobility. So when I talked about some of the competition, one of the people who provides really just a great set of functions all in one box is Palo Alto, as I said. What's different about Cohesive, we provide those same functions, but you can multi-source those functions. If you use something like PA, they have a network intrusion detection function. We, in a sense, have none or many, I guess is how I'd say it, because we can run popular ones like Suricata, Snort, which is what Cisco Firepower is based off of. Zeek is another popular open source network intrusion mechanism. We can pull in rule sets from emerging threats. We can pull in other popular rule sets. So we provide a plug and play secure access service edge, where you can start very much with what we call crawl, walk, run, where you can solve those initial connectivity issues, move into your federation issues, and then plug into the infrastructure that you're putting in place, plug into that the ability to use exactly the types of functions, whether it's like a web application firewall, a proxy server, a domain resolver, federating across your cloud infrastructure. And all of this can be done with the popular DevOps mechanisms of today, things like Terraform, things like CloudFormation, things like Chef, things like Puppet, etc. So here's the heart of our technical architecture, and this is actually this is a contentious statement what I'll wrap around this slide, because I've had very intelligent, bright network people laugh in my face over this. Networks are nothing but addresses, routes, and rules. They're the names or numbers that identify a computing device. There are paths from getting to and from these computing devices. And there are ways to say yes you can or no you can't. Everything else is implementation detail. So our technical architecture can dramatically lower the complexity of your cloud deployments by giving you a manageable approach to cloud networking, to a service edge that always strives to say, what do you and your applications need? You need addresses, routes, and rules. And there's lots of network technology underneath that. I'm not saying we don't have to be expert at implementation detail, but you should not have to be experts at deep network implementation detail. Our touch phrase there is what it says in the header. It says, simple is not simplistic, or it certainly doesn't have to be. So then, we talked about this already, is how do you reduce your time to market? So we have this simplifying metaphor of address, routes, and rules. How do we create that service edge for you that reduces your time to market in your journey to the cloud? And you can roll it out incrementally. You can grow your clusters of your service edge. You can stretch your service edge. You can extend your service edge as needed so that you have an attestably secure infrastructure effectively orchestrating the information flow to and from your cloud-based applications. And it is the crawl, walk, run we talked about. You have to be able to connect. If you can't connect, your business doesn't launch. If you can't federate, your collection of services, your partners, your customers, your business can't scale. And if you can't secure with a big S, a testable control, your business can't. Here it says can't pass audit, but it really is your business also can't scale. So similar to what the gang at Gartner is saying about secure access service edge, network and security are becoming one integrated fabric. And to us, the key is that it's cloud to the ground, it's agile, built out of cloud infrastructure, and it's something that you, the customer, attestably control. And then the goal here is just verifiable. I just said it. Sorry, I front ran my slide here. It's just verifiable, testable controls, right? So the amount of big monitoring systems that are out there now, CloudWatch, the Azure equivalent to CloudWatch, Datadog, Sumo Logic, Logic Monitor, Alert Logic. There's an awe-inspiring number of big data systems out there. How do you get them the information across your cloud footprint? A secure access service edge is a big part of it. Giving you that insight, connecting to your legacy systems using things like SNMP and NetFlow, and then into new cloud native analytical systems that may have very particularly defined patterns that they want you to project to them, things like Amazon Security Hub, for example. So you need that insight, visibility, and control, and that's what it takes. It's an important part of you getting your HIPAA environment validated, getting your high trust environment audited. And we've been in production use in these use cases since 2010, whilst the first customer use cases were 2008. So the heart of this, just really quickly, I don't want to spend much more on slides. We'll take a few questions here. Don't want to go much past the half hour. The VNS Cube security controllers are the heart of the solution, right? It's a virtual appliance. It's combines the features and functions that were traditionally three markets: the security appliance, the delivery controller, and the unified threat management. And the important thing is, on top of this is the ability to plug in the web application firewall of choice, content cache of choice, network intrusion detection of choice, and increasingly those things are made out of open source. Cisco bought open source Snort and SourceFire in order to create the Cisco Firepower product. Lots and lots of the vendors use these components. What we've done is create a network edge plugin system so that you can mix and match these as based on your own particular needs, your own particular biases, your own particular skills, your own particular confidences in these components out there. And those things come out of our network security marketplace. And it's just a great way to be able to bring new functionality to bear without disrupting the core service edge itself. If you're using some of these other environments, they are complete black boxes, and you don't have the ability to do what you want. What we've seen across customer use cases is increased engagement, increased compliance, and reduced time to market. And we've got people doing pharmaceutical research. We have people doing medical records. There's really just across the gamut. I already mentioned sort of directly getting information from MRI machines up into the cloud, things of that nature that are critical, and we're a part of people's run time. We're not something off to the side. We're in path all day, 24/7, and have been for more than a decade. And then there's the people behind those people, and some of these customers, it's been more public that they're customers of ours. So if you look at some of the leading cloud SaaS vendors like Infor Cloud Suite and WebRoot Security and Pegasystems for business process management and Rescale Big Data and Simio Authentication and Identity, TIBCO Big Data as a Service, these people themselves use our service edge technology to secure and extend and federate their businesses. So not only is it we have customers in the healthcare space, but our other customers have significant penetration in that healthcare space. Just one simple example was, we have a East Coast health insurance provider needed to be able to extend their data centers to that very traditional footprint like we talked about. So they were doing a lift and shift. We, in fact, sit as part of their on-prem network that on our secure access nodes sit in their data center and then extend to Cloud Edge and help them service their 385,000 members and the federation they need to over 10,000 other providers in their space. So, Cohesive can help you. Our cloud area networking strategy, our secure service edge can help you, and you have to get the network and security infrastructure right from the start. You have to have a testable control. So I think, contact us. We do light selling. If you want to work with us, we would love to work with you. Get some information, and if it's not a fit, we'll tell you it's not a fit. will tell you, hey, we think you should try this other product, this other provider, because there's just no point in not having a successful business partnership as part of having a vendor-customer relationship. So we've had a couple questions come in. If you have some questions, you can paste them into the chat. I know I saw a couple. Let me try and get to that screen over here. Sorry about that. So one question is, you mentioned sort of cohesive HIPAA compliance. Can you be really precise? And I guess we are a HIPAA business associate. We comply with the regulations needed to be a business associate of a HIPAA covered entity. And I showed you the slides from HipaaTraining.com. That's the company we use for training, and I myself have taken the tests, and almost all of us have to take the tests and pass sufficiently well to qualify as a business associate. There was a question about data in motion migration. Can't I just trust my cloud vendor and what they do? Azure does not encrypt in any way data in motion in your VNets. Amazon does do encryption in their VPCs. It's shared key encryption. It's shared symmetrical key encryption, meaning that the keys are in the infrastructure. They're not ones you can generate. So I think if you look at the Amazon encryption of data in motion, I think it does a good thing for Amazon because it gives them an ability to claim that they aren't touching anything, but it's not the same as customer controlled encryption. And again, I think it's a pretty generous read of the HIPAA network security requirements. If you think of other audit and regulatory frameworks, it's a fairly aggressive read to think that you don't need to control your own encryption. But again, I think I said this at the beginning, cohesive, we came into this world just obsessed with encryption in motion, whether it's to your edge, from your edge, or inside your app. And so we do have a strong bias in that case. That's worth remembering. Can you talk about some of the other customer use cases? One of my favorite ones is one of our customers. They follow the rules to be HIPAA compliant. I don't know if this use case requires it, but they effectively provide imaging, camera technology, review technology, so parents and family can monitor and see their infants in neonatal intensive care units. Really fascinating use case, a really caring part of healthcare. And that's always been one of the ones that has been my favorites. Like I said, I think if you reach out to our sales team, they can take you through a few more of the names and what we do with them. Okay, we'll do a couple more. What do I? Why should I care about multi-cloud? I think we kind of talked about that. If you care about multi-cloud, we can help you. If you don't care, you probably care about multi-region. You probably care about multi-zone. So they're somewhat the same things. I've got somebody waving their hand at me. When we talk about Gartner, you talk about Gartner SASE. How close are we to their vision, and how do we compare to something like a Zscaler, who's somebody must have read the paper. It's a Zscaler or somebody like that. I think I already mentioned this. I think the pieces are coming together. The fact that we have a plug-and-play service edge makes it easier for us to deliver a service edge that meets the vision, because not all the pieces need to come from us. We're able to orchestrate that together as opposed to a monolithic network footprint from a single vendor, and we certainly think of that as a strength. And then I think I mentioned this. We look at people like a Zscaler, like a Netscope, that are spending millions and tens of millions on points of presence, fixed infrastructure in metal on the ground, And so their message is connect your stuff, your on-prem, your partners, your medical offices, your MRI machines, connect them to us, Zscaler or Netscope, and then we'll get that traffic to your cloud. Well, there's two ways to get to the cloud. It's a carrier connector, it's the internet. Why not say we'll reach down? So those guys do cloud ground to the cloud. We think it's expensive. It's way more expensive than us. It's less agile. It's less automated. Um, we do cloud to the ground. We build it east-west at cloud edge, and then we integrate to points of presence around the world as needed. So we're in the same space, but I think us being plug and play and us being, in effect, cloud native service edge is a real strength. So, as I said, cohesive cloud area networking can help you today. Support at cohesive.net. If you want to try our free editions, they're in the marketplace. Contact me at cohesive.net, sales at cohesive.net. Whatever avenue you want, we'll try and get you the information you need and get you up and running with the service edge that can get your workloads to the cloud today. Thank you.